Welcome to the Grace Way, a program from Grace Baptist Academy. Each episode is designed to share the heart and vision of our school through thought-provoking conversations, biblical truth, and meaningful insight. Whether we are answering your questions, outlining our philosophy, hearing from our staff or other professionals, our goal is to strengthen the partnership between home and school, all for the glory of God. And now, here's your host, Craig Carpenter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Grace Way. Thank you for tuning in today as we hear part 2 of our 2-part episode with Missionary to the Philippines, Douglas Marco. We thank you for listening and hope today's episode is a blessing to you. If you did not get the opportunity to listen to part number 1, we encourage you to go back and listen before continuing on to part number 2. How did the Lord lead you to the Philippines in particular?
So, knowing that I was called, and I knew that the mission field is kind of something that I was going to do, the Philippines just was something that it seemed that over and over again. So I believe God calls you through, one, He calls you through His Word. He confirms it through His Spirit, but then He leads you through doors based on experience and interactions with people. And so narrowing it down to the Philippines was mostly just interactions with people that as God opened the doors of my life, there was always somebody there from the Philippines, whether it was a missionary or an actual Filipino. And so it's almost as if every door God opened for me led me to somebody associated with the Philippines. And I've come up with this principle of my life is that every door He opens, I must walk through. If I don't walk through a door that He opens, then I'm obligated to take care of myself. But if I walk through a door He opens, He's obligated to take care of me. And so walking through every door that He opened, mostly because I need Him to take care of me, I can't take care of myself, led me to influences that were directing me to the Philippines. And so one of those early missions conferences that I was mentioning to you about, our church had these, they called them Baptist bucks. So they were like dollar bills that we had printed on green paper with our pastor's picture on it. And they had all these different denominations on it and numbered amounts. And the church had like a little market or a little store for missionaries to go buy toothpaste and shampoos and stuff like that. And so like a month before missions conference, we were winning these in Sunday school and through different classes. And so our teachers would give them to us. And the purpose was they wanted to get us kids mindful of the needs of missionaries. And so at missions conference, we would give these to any missionary we wanted to, whether we divided them up or whatever. But there was a missionary there from the Philippines. And for whatever reason, I was just super drawn to him. And I remember thinking, I'm going to give him all of my money. And I remember even looking under the pews, looking in the trash, going to my friends and asking them for their money if they had any left. And I remember taking this giant stack of fake money to a missionary that had been serving in the Philippines, and I'm like, "Here, sir, this is for you." You know, I was like 7 years old, 6 or 7, and to me, that's the first ever interaction I had with a Philippine missionary. And God just kept bringing people like that in my life. And when I went to go to Bible college, I was very focused. I had looked into a lot of different Bible colleges, and every Bible college that I contacted or contacted me, the only question I asked them was, do you have an experienced missions teacher? And 100% of the time, the answer was no. And I tried to tell them as nicely as I could, but I could read the same book that whoever was teaching, that missions class. I could just read the same book and save a lot of money. And I said, so call me if you have an experienced missions teacher. And sure enough, the school that I ended up going to for the majority of my education called me one day and said, hey, when are you coming? And I'm like, I'm not, because y'all don't have an experienced missions teacher. And they said, but we do now. And I'm like, okay, who is it? And it was a guy I had never heard of, but he was an experienced missionary in the Philippines and was there for 16 years. And I'm like, sign me up. My heart's always been tender for the Philippines. Don't know why. Sign me up. This was the only requirement that I had, that I believe I reached that requirement prayerfully, and got to the Philippines. And me and that missions teacher, our hearts were knit like quick. And I think mine faster than his because, he's a teacher, but I wanted to be a missionary, and the Philippines was so frequent on my heart. What was wonderful about that is our college wasn't small. for a Bible college. But there was a rule, and one of the rules in the school regarding classes was there had to be a minimum of 3 sign up for the course, or the course would be canceled for the semester. Well, come to find out, this one class I had with him, only 3 signed up, 2 showed up, and 1 financially withdrew. So for one semester, it was me and him one-on-one, and that really knit our hearts together.
What an experience!
Yeah, and I got personal experience, very intimate teaching in a big school, really, where most students never experience that with a teacher, especially on that level.
The level of education in that sense is it's entirely different.
It's very different, and so I already knew that was kind of the direction I was going, but that was huge for my spiritual development and my understanding of my responsibilities as a missionary, and kind of just solidifying that call and direction, Philippines.
Let's talk about how you got over to the mission field.
Sure.
One of the stories I heard you tell was that you went over way under-supported. Mm-hmm. How did the Lord kind of use, if you can walk me through that, and then how did the Lord use that to really, maybe to teach you to live by faith, and then kind of help your ministry get off the ground?
Sure. So, being raised in a Christian home, my dad being an evangelist, I saw his faith a lot, and I saw the result of his faith. I saw God reward his faith frequently, and I kind of was just my thought has always been, well, if God can do it for one, he'll do it for everybody. He's not a respecter of persons, and if I put in that same effort, he's going to reward that same effort, right? I mean, and it's true. It is. It's simply that true. And he's not a respecter of persons, and he'll reward anybody who will put in that focus and that effort. And so I did learn that I couldn't live on Dad's faith anymore. I had to have my own. And so God put us through, you go through deputation, you travel, you have times where you desperately need God to show up. And I remember early on in my marriage, my biggest prayer for my wife was that God would show himself strong to her so that her faith could increase, so that when we went to the field, we both went there on high levels of faith. And one of the things that probably grew our faith the most was seeing God show up on a regular basis when we needed. And most missionaries don't quit their secular job until they have about 10% of their support coming in before they actually go full-time. We, on the other hand, had $100 coming in. It was barely enough to cover my cell phone bill, but I was very impressed by God that this is the time we need to go full-time. I already had a child, and he was barely a year old. And just the way that God provided for us during that time when we hadn't even gone to the field yet, the way he provided for me was just like, you know what? He's a rewarder of them who diligently seek him. That's not a lie. And by the time we were about ready to go to the field, our deputation wasn't like a normal missionary deputation where you just go from church to church and raise support. This missionary who was my teacher had left the school and had gone into a global missions endeavor, and I went alongside with him during that time. And so we would travel, and then we'd go out of the country and start churches and help national pastors, and then we'd come back in, raise more money, and travel and go back out. And so our support was a bit low because we weren't that consistent fundraising. We were taking what we had and we were going out of the country and doing something with it. We started churches in the Philippines and Puerto Rico. We helped get Bibles into 13 different countries and helped work in 25 total countries. And so because of that, our support wasn't too terribly high, but we were busy doing stuff. And the opportunity came for us to actually go to the Philippines and take the work of a missionary that was already in the country for like 30 years. And we set a date. We're like, okay, God, if you want us to go, this is the date we're going. We're going February 19 and 2023, which is actually 13 years ago today.
2023?
2013.
Okay, 2013.
Yeah,
okay.
2013. That was the date we set. And that date came around, and the tickets were purchased, and our support was $800 a month. And it was just like, okay, that's what you gave us. That's all we need, I guess. And so we went out there.
What did the mission board recommend that you?
So the mission board recommended $4,500 a month.
Not even 25%.
Yeah. And we had lost our pastor due to circumstances just about 6 months before we went. So we had $1,200 actually. We had $1,200 support up until that point. The thing that sending churches need to understand is, when pastors ask me, what can we do for you as a sending church, my response has always been stay straight. Stay straight. Because if you don't stay straight, it doesn't affect you being able to feed your children, but my children will starve. And churches don't understand that your present affects our future. And as missionaries, there's such a big role the sending church plays. So our sending church lost their pastor. As a result of that, the missions board we were on, which is attached to that church, crumbled. And that inconsistency in supporting churches is just enough that many of them won't continue to support you. And so we lost all the way up to about $800 a month. And so tickets were already bought. I didn't buy the plane tickets. God bought the tickets through a supporting church. And it was like, you know what, the day's here. This is the day we set. We feel confident this is what God wanted. And so if he's done this up to this point, then he can take care of us the rest of the way. And we're here 13 years later to the day, and God has always shown himself strong.
Wow. Tremendous. I mean, that's a tremendous story. Obviously, one you don't hear very often. Now, when you got over to the field, did you just go ahead and write letters to people or emails? I mean, how did you do that, or did just enough people hear about that you were already over there and just start to take you on and send support?
For us, we just put the pedal to the metal. We just went straight into work, and we laid the groundwork for what would be our future ministry. So we were with that one missionary for about 3 months, kind of just got our bearings, and then God moved us very clearly. After fasting for 2 weeks, God gave me clarity that I was no longer going to stay in that ministry, that he wanted to send me somewhere else. And that kind of goes back to him opening those doors. Like it's almost like I explain it like, the cartoon where the guy's trying to lead the horse with a carrot on the string, right? On the fishing pole. And God kind of does that. Like he'll lead you to a certain point just to see if you'll follow, and then open a door for you to go through and to see if you'll follow him there. And I say, how did I get to my city? I didn't even know about my city, did not know it was on the map. You could have told it to me. I would have no clue where it was at. But kind of following his door openings is what led me to the city we're in. And so once we got to that city, after getting that clarification through fasting and praying, we just hit the ground running. And what was super beneficial for us was actually the exchange rate. So in the country, in the Philippines, the exchange rate for dollar to peso was when we got there was 40 pesos per dollar. So if most of our churches support us at $100 a month, or at least the higher churches would support us at 100. So in my mind, every 100 is 4,000 pesos, right? That's how it works. Well, almost from the time we got there to this day, that exchange rate has just increased and increased and increased and increased. At this point, just in the last few weeks, it has gone up to 59 pesos per dollar. That means instead of 4,000 for every 100, it's 5,900, almost 6,000. And so that's like for every $400 or $500, that's like a whole new supporting church, because you got an extra 1,000. It's wild. And so just the exchange rate helped us helped us have more finances to do more in that period of time. But after quite a few years and being able to just post things on social media, a good majority of the support that we picked up while on the field was because either we were seen through social media, or a missionary on the island somewhere in another city had visitors come, and they passed them through and stopped in our place and saw our place and was like, wow, something's happening here, and kind of got on board. So it was either through social media or God literally bringing them to our ministry and seeing it. But we never reached out to churches asking for more support, or sent out letters asking anybody. It's kind of God brought them all to us.
What would you say to the young person who is considering being a missionary?
Again, going back to making sure that decision is not emotional, and that it is a God-called endeavor. And then I would just say, you can trust Jesus. You can trust him. If he's called you to do that, go do it with all your might. That verse says, whatsoever the hand findeth to do, do what I might. And, I think it's funny how finicky we can be. Like, I don't know about the future. I don't know what's going to happen. You know what? Who loses sleep over the fact that we are in a giant water ball in the middle of a universe at thousands of miles an hour spinning through this universe out of control? Like, whoever loses sleep over that? Nobody loses sleep over that, right? And
but it's crazy once you think about it.
Yeah, it's crazy when you think about it. And so why do I need to lose sleep over what my future is when I have very little control over it, just like I have little control as to where the world ends up in the universe and where the planets move and all that. So I can trust that if God can move this massive universe and this solar system, and it can be so beautiful in its chaos, that he can make something very beautiful in the chaos of this world out of my life if I will just say, you know what? If you've called me, I'm going to run with my might to get it done, and I'm going to let you take care of the rest.
What would you say to somebody who's hesitant? Would you say, or I guess maybe the question is more like, would you say the same thing to somebody who is hesitant? Or if asked, would you become a missionary, and they say no, but maybe the Lord is calling them, or the Lord is tugging at their heartstrings to do something like that, or placing a call in their life, would you basically say the same thing?
Yeah, for the most part, it's maybe in a slightly different way, but most people that are hesitant, it's an emotional hesitation. And in some cases, even people that are too eager, it's an emotional eagerness. I understand the fear to be cautious and to be sure, but I can promise you this, that if you'll trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, and in all your ways acknowledge him, he will direct your path. I mean, that's scripture. It's fact. And so I really don't have to worry where I'm standing if I'm close to Jesus. You look at Peter. Peter had great fear, right? So they're out on the sea. Jesus is walking on the water coming to them. The storm is causing the boat that they are in to be tossed to and fro. They see Jesus coming on the water, and they look at him thinking he's a ghost, and they cried out for fear. The Bible says that he immediately, he calmed their fears and says, "Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid." Well, what's crazy is Peter's fear, right? When we scream in fear, that's a last resort. That's a last ditch effort, right? For the most time, when we're afraid, we're kind of holding on with dear might, thinking we can still sway the circumstance. But as soon as we scream, it's because that's the last thing we can do, right? And so Peter's crying out for fear because that's the last thing he can do. He's too scared. There's nothing else. He has no more control. Jesus says, "Don't be afraid. It's I." And his unbelievable fear turned into an unmeasurable amount of courage. He then says to Jesus, "If it be thou, bid me to come under the water with thee." And Jesus says one word, "Come, come." Peter steps out of the boat in the middle of the storm. The storm is still going. Steps out of the boat in the middle of the storm and begins to walk to Jesus. And so what's amazing is when I trust in Jesus, he'll help me do the impossible to get to him. And what's interesting is everybody else in the boat didn't get that same experience because their fear kept them in. And his courage let him get out. And what's wonderful too is that, I'm the closest to Jesus I've ever been. I'm walking. I'm doing the impossible, right? And I'm close to Jesus. Well, fear is not going to stop. So the devil has two jobs, and two jobs only. His first job is to send you to hell. His second job is to send you to heaven with nothing. And he's going to use your fear to make sure he sends you to heaven with nothing. So if he can't send you to hell, great. But he's going to try to send you to heaven with wood, hay, stubble, rather than gold, silver, and precious stone. And he's going to continue to use fear to keep those in the boat to stay in the boat, and those who stepped out of the boat to get back in the boat, right? And so here comes the wind. The Bible says it's boisterous, and he begins to sink, and he cries out to Jesus. And immediately the Bible says Jesus stretched forth his hand and saved him, pulled him back up. And so stepping out of the boat is going to be hard. But getting to Jesus is something Jesus will make happen. Fear is going to still come, but if you'll cry out to Jesus when that fear comes, he's gonna make sure that you make it to where you're trying to get. And the Bible then says that both Peter and Jesus stepped into the boat, and those that were in the boat said of Jesus, "Truly, thou art the Son of God. The Bible then tells us that as soon as Jesus stepped in the boat, the storm stopped. And not only that, immediately they were at their destination. It's crazy. And so what I can help somebody understand is it's going to be hard to get out of the boat. But if you'll get out of the boat, you're going to continue to see God show up in miraculous ways. It's just going to be encouraging, and you're going to want to keep going. And somebody asked me years ago to write an article on faith, and it's really hard to write anything about faith because faith is so hard to describe. Even Scripture kind of describes it in a tongue twister kind of way. Over there in Hebrews 11:1, right? Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So what's faith? I don't know. That's such a tongue twister. And you can break it down and all that stuff. But I began to think about it, and my mind went back to a story. So my dad was an evangelist, and we didn't get to do too much when it comes to outside of the church. But we had a day off, and Mom and Dad took us to Six Flags over Texas. And I'd never been to an amusement park before, and my sisters and my parents are riding a bunch of roller coasters, and I'm just like, no, that's not for me. I'm not interested in doing that. And so I'll hold the bags and I'll hold everybody's stuff, and I'm just going to hang out and I'll let you all ride. Well, the end of the day came, and Dad said, there's one more roller coaster and we're all going to ride it. And it was called the Texas Giant. And the Texas Giant was one of the biggest, oldest wooden roller coasters in the country. And it scared me to death. The sound it made scared me to death. And I remember saying, Dad, I don't want to go. I'm scared. And he said, you got out of every other ride this today, and this one you're getting on. And I remember getting in line and begging God, like, God, you got to do something. Shut this ride down. Cause the rain to come, something. Well, interestingly enough, my sister passed out of heat exhaustion. I mean, we're out there in the East Texas or Dallas, Texas sunlight, and she passes out. Her body hits the ground. We drag her out of line, get her on a bench, throw some water down her throat. She wakes up, and Dad's like, I think we should go home. And I'm like, yes, let's go home.
This is what I prayed for.
I was like, thank God he answers prayer, right? I was like, not only did I not have to ride the roller coaster, he struck my sister down too, right? 2 for 1. Anyway.
How old were you, by the way?
I was probably 12 at that time.
Thank you for not saying like 25 or something.
Yeah. Well, a few years later, we had moved to Kentucky, and I was a part of a youth department there, and I was attending a Christian school. And the Christian school was doing an outing, taking the students to Kentucky Kingdom, or not Kentucky Kingdom, I think it's called, it might be Kentucky Kingdom now. Kings Island, that's what it was, Kings Island. And it's right there on the border of Kentucky and Ohio. And I didn't think about it so much. I'm on the bus with my friends, and we're just kind of having fun and singing and all kinds of stuff. And then as we were getting off the bus, I said to my friend, where are we going to ride first? And I'm thinking bumper cars. Let's stay close to the ground as possible. Let's get down. Let's play some arcade games or whatever. And he said, we're going to ride that roller coaster. And he pointed out this massive metal orange roller coaster with 3 loops called the Vortex. And I'm like, I can't do this. Like inside, I'm like, I can't do this. And I remember walking up to it with everybody. Like everybody in the bus was going to ride that first. And I remember thinking to myself, now I'm 16, 17, and I'm like, I'll probably never get a girlfriend if I back out. Like nobody will ever take me serious if I back out. I can't wimp out on this. And so I got in line, and no joke, I stood right behind my sister, and I began to ask God, do it again. Do it again. Take her out. I can't ride this. You got to save me. I can't be embarrassed. And it finally got to the point where I was the next guy in line, and I'm like, I don't know, and I can't do this. I looked over to one of my friends who was a senior, and he was a lot taller than me. His name was David. And I said, David, I got to tell you a secret, man. I'm scared to death. I've never been on a roller coaster before. I don't know what I'm going to do. He said, don't worry about it. Just come with me. And they opened the gate, and we literally got on the very front car. And I don't know if you've never been on a roller coaster, the front car is not the one you want to get into, We had nobody in front of us. It was just kind of us. And I remember putting on that seat belt and then that harness, and I was trying to suck all the air out of my stomach to get that harness to go down as far as it would click. And we started going up that hill, and just the sound of that chain clicking as it pulled our car up that little hill was so traumatizing, like that click, 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 click. And I remember we got to the top, and I remember like, I can see everything from here. Like, we're so high up, I think I can see my house an hour and a half away. And we went down that hill the first time, and I lost it. I'm screaming, my guts out. I feel like I passed out 2 or 3 times. At one point, they flashed a white light in my face. I didn't know what happened. I found out later they'd taken my picture, and we finally went through those loops. And I've never experienced anything like this before in my life. I got the cold sweats. My knuckles are white. I feel weak in the knees. The car finally comes to a stop. They release the harness. I rip the harness off. I unbuckle myself, and I jump out, and I run to get back in line and do it again. Mostly because I was just so thrilled to be alive that I made it. And when thinking about faith, that's kind of what it's like. It's like a roller coaster that most people will never get on because it is so ominous and it's so scary. But if you'll get on that faith roller coaster and you see it through, you'll be so excited that God showed up, you'll just want to do it again. And there's nothing quite like God showing up. It's such a powerful, powerful experience that you'll want to do again and again and again and again. And when the faith ride gets a little more comfortable, you'll push yourself to bigger rides. And he shows up every time, and it will get you back on. That's the motivation, to get back on and go again. So for 13 years, if there's been any success, it's not been mine. It's been the fact that God has shown up, and I've been so amazed by it that I just want to get back on and write it again and again and again and again.
Speaking of God's faithfulness or God showing up for you, can you describe maybe your most favorite day of the mission work so far?
You know, my most favorite day is, sometimes I have to adjust my attitude, but my most favorite day is every day. And I get to wake up every day, and like I said, sometimes I got to adjust my attitude. I got to get my coffee in first, but I can't tell you how many times, and it started when I first went there, and I would wake up in the morning and I would look out the window and I'm like, I'm here. I'm on the mission field. Like that 6-year-old little boy who wanted to be a missionary, he's here.
I think I totally understand what you're saying.
And so
when you're checking off or not checking off the box,
yeah.
Like, I don't mean that in like just a dismissive way, but when you're like, wow, I'm actually doing what the Lord wanted me to do.
Yeah. And so every day that I can get in that mind frame and that mindset, that's the best day for me. It's like, I am here. I don't believe in bad days or good days. I believe in bad moments. And we all have bad moments, but I can easily take a bad moment and turn it into a good moment if I'll change my perspective. And so any day and almost every day is a good day. Like I'm leaving 2 weeks from tomorrow to go to the Philippines to go back home. And I've been waiting for this day since I got off the plane, because that's where God called me to do. That's where I thrive. That's what he created me for. As much as I miss this country and I miss my family and I'll miss those things, the joy of serving Jesus makes things a lot less, makes me a lot less homesick. There's a wonderful song that's called Anywhere with Jesus. And the very last verse, it's a very old hymn, and the very last verse says this: anywhere with Jesus, I can go to sleep. And that's a powerful thing. You think about being a missionary and being anywhere in the world, anywhere with Jesus, I can go to sleep. And the end of that verse says, anywhere with Jesus can be home, sweet home. And so for me, wherever Jesus is at, I can go to sleep. And I don't have to worry about having a restless, fearful night. And everywhere with Jesus is home. And the Philippines is my home because of Jesus.
I want to wrap it up here. I don't want to take any more of your time. I do have two quick questions.
Sure.
One of those is for our listeners, and seeing your ministry and seeing your ministry presented really was a blessing to me to see all the things that you're doing. It's really neat, of course, to see anybody who's winning the lost, discipling, putting them through additional Bible training, and then of course the church and whatnot. But one of the unique ministries that we talked about was your ministry really to, I don't even know what you would call it, but something like forgotten newborns. Mm-hmm. And if you could share with the audience kind of what that is, and it certainly is easily probably the most unique church ministry I've ever seen in America or on the foreign field.
So we refer to it as our kind of unwanted baby ministry, and the Philippines has its own problems, just like America has its own. The Philippines is 1/3 the size of the United States, but they have the equal amount of abortions every year. And
sad.
that's tragic anywhere.
Sad. Yeah.
But it's additionally tragic in a country where abortions are illegal. So every abortion in the Philippines is an illegal abortion. As a result of that, 12% of mothers who have an abortion end up dying from the complications. Now, because it is illegal and so many are dying, many will carry the baby to full term and then sadly will throw it away. It's not uncommon to find a baby floating in a river, caught in a fishing net in the ocean, found in a rice sack in a sugarcane field. Just recently posted on Facebook a picture of a baby in a shoebox under a tree, wrapped in a plastic shopping bag. It's terribly, terribly common. And so God brought that ministry kind of to us, just kind of brought it to us. We had been in the country for about 2 years. Our church that we started at was right next to a midwife clinic. So most ladies won't go to the hospital and have a baby. They'll go to a midwife clinic, and it's only about $20 to have a baby at a midwife clinic. Now, it's $20, and so,
there's a little bit of you get what you pay for.
You get what you pay for kind of thing.
Okay, well, I'm just thinking about the $50,000 it took to bring our daughter into this
you don't
world.
You don't want a $20 delivery, that's for sure. And but
we are talking about, though, we are what the Filipinos would call the province, or
yes,
I mean, you're not in the big city. You are in the poorest of the poorest of the poorest.
You're in the
parts.
poorest of the poorest, and even in the big city, midwives as a more common way of delivering than going to a hospital.
So, sort of like a cultural thing, then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just easier for them. And again, hospitals are just kind of new, still, even. But the midwife came over and had told me, she said, a mother just delivered 9 hours ago, and the baby she delivered, she has not fed him and has not held him and doesn't want him. And as a matter of fact, she said she tried to abort him multiple times using a pill, but never was able to accomplish it. She doesn't want him. Will you take him? And I'm thinking, what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to take care of us? It's a person. There's a person. Who's going to take care of him? It's not like it's just like for a few minutes. It's forever. And so I said, let me go see him. Like, take me over there. Let me see him. And compassion required a response. I walked in. I saw him laying there untouched, unfed for 9 hours. I saw the mother on the other side of the bed, kind of with this evil look in her eye. Not that she was an evil person, but there's just something evil about that whole interaction. And compassion required a response, and it's like, yes, of course. Why would you not take him? I ran back to the house. Our son was just born, and I had some formula and a new bottle and some diapers, and I ran over. I was the first to hold him. I was the first to feed him. And we have had multiple babies come in that way through our ministry, mostly all through the midwife, because these mothers either don't want them or their family doesn't want them, or there's questions as to who the father is, and so the father doesn't want them. And so we have been so wonderfully blessed to be able to take care of many of these children. We change their name when we get them, so they have a legal name, and then we change their name to keep them anonymous. It can be so wild. Families can have such different feelings and opinions and even behaviors about it, that trying to keep them anonymous and safe is really our first responsibility. And so that changing the name helps us do that. We jokingly tell, people always ask us, what's their last name? And we're like, Baptist Church.
That or Marco.
yeah. And so right now we have some children that have been with us for, one just turned 6 years old. The other one just turned 4 years old. Jerry is his name, and Ruth.
Jerry Baptist Church.
Yeah, Jerry Baptist Church and Ruth Baptist Church.
Okay.
And we take care of them. Our long-term goal is not to have a organization take care of children, but get the children back in the home with mom and dad. And so we've been able to get children back in the home with some of their parents, because our caring for them was temporary. The children that we can't get back in the home are children that their parents don't want them back. Like, they're completely done. Now, we've given every mother that we've dealt with complete freedom to come at any time and spend as much time with the child as she wants. And what's interesting is you'll find on day 1, day 2, they'll come. Week 1, week 2, they'll come. But after the third week, they never come back. And after the first month, you'll never see them again. And that's always tragic. And the first baby we had was her 9th baby. So it wasn't like this was a first, second, third, or fourth. This is her 9th child. She's got 8 others to care about at home. And so the child loses that importance, and she goes on her daily life. And so our prayer is that we can really expand this into something bigger. We do have an unwanted baby drop box for anonymous drop-offs. That's not used right now due to the fact that we have some government approvals that need to be processed. But there's so much more that can be done with that. And our prayer is that long-term we can provide facilities for mothers that are expecting, that are struggling with abortion or struggling with the cultural issues, where she can be surrounded by people who love her, care about her, disciple her, give her a community of church people that care about her, help her get an occupation where she can provide for the family, and even give her temporary housing so that we can help facilitate that. So there's so much more. This is the work of the church. This is the work of the church. The Bible makes it very clear that pure religion and undefiled before God is the fatherless and the widow. Yep. And so trying to help the fatherless not just be fatherless by giving them a new home, but by helping them have a home that's Christ honoring, and a home that they can be raised in, that draws them and nurtures them in Christ, is very vital. And so we're trying to we have that unique opportunity. Philippines offers that to us. We don't have the opportunity in America as churches so much, because there's so many other avenues to accomplish that. The Philippines doesn't have all that. And so I believe the church is first and foremost responsible for that. And that's just one of those really unique things we can do.
Praise the Lord that he gave you the wisdom and the foresight to take advantage of that situation, because, I can't imagine. If we can sort of finish on a high note, you were able to share a story with me today about a circumstance where somebody legitimately, a grandmother, walked into the back of your church building, and keeping in mind that maybe some younger people might listen to this, but kind of walk us through. It was one of the craziest missionary stories I've heard, and boy, at least one of the reasons you could become a missionary is just for the stories.
Yeah, just for the stories. The stories are worth it. If you could put it in a book and sell it. But anyway, we have a burden to reach people, and one of the ways we can do that also is through a Christian school outreach. And so we started really, really early on a Christian school, and we had some children in the school that just weren't behaving as they should, and they had to be expelled from the school, not kicked out of the church, just expelled from the school, and not even permanently, just for the semester, if anything. And but you have to understand, in the Philippines, there's a lot of mindset there that if my child can be associated with an American ministry or an American church or school, then they're almost guaranteed to go overseas and get a good job and send money back, right? And so by expelling this child, is a 14-year-old boy in our high school, by expelling him, like his grandmother, who, it's a matriarchal society, so mothers and grandmothers kind of control the whole dynamic of the family, and so she's the oldest one, and causing him to be, him being expelled from our school, in her mind, she's just lost her bread and butter, like her future opportunity for financial stability. And so Filipinos are wonderful people, but if you offend them...
I love the quick caveat right there.
They're wonderful people. And they're very happy people, but you get on their bad side, it can turn really, really quick. So she came down the road and arrived at our church on a Sunday night, just before church, with a sword in hand, ready to take my head, and in front of our whole church. And so my assistant pastor at the time ran back to his house and came back with his sword, and I'm standing between two people with a sword. One trying to protect me. You're about to witness
your first duel.
Yeah. One trying to protect me, one trying to take me out. And you really learn very quick who's on your side and who's not on your side. And so we were able to kind of talk her down. And I had to step him aside and be like, okay, Peter, put down the sword, right? We're not cutting any ears off today. And because I don't have the power to put it back on.
Yeah, right.
And so kind of just calming him down and kind of calming her down, and God ended up stepping in and being able to help us rectify that tense situation. But those things can happen so fast before you're even knowing what's happening. You're you're staring at a blade, And so we did get a bit of a heads up. The granddaughter had called us while she was walking over, saying, "Hey, just so you know,
she's mad.
My grandma's on the way with a knife, sword. Actually, we call it a bolo. Bolos are used to chop down like limbs of trees, to cut grass or whatever. So they're that big, thick, heavy, wide blade sword. And so she was coming.
Those are very dangerous in the hands of a Filipino, especially.
Yeah, they're
that's
dangerous.
Their famous weapon.
That is.
Look, thank you for your time. This has
Absolutely.
been great. This concludes part 2 of our 2-part interview with Missionary to the Philippines, Douglas Marco. Thank you for tuning in, and students, let us continue to walk the Grace Way together.
Thank you for listening to The Grace Way. We hope today's message strengthened your connection to both the Lord and our ministry. If you have any questions you would like to have answered on the program or would like to connect with us, please email us at thegraceway@gbaos.org. Until next time, let us continue walking the Grace Way together.